Hi, welcome to the BrachialPlexus. So today we will be learning about the BrachialPlexus. And so the BrachialPlexus will be compared to a railway system, and similar to transportation maps, the BrachialPlexus is a complex system that can be overwhelming to look at. So I will be breaking down the organization of this system by describing it as a train and the route it covers. So, the brachial plexus is a complex network of nerves. It originates from the spinal cord at the region of the neck near the shoulder, and it then splits and forms multiple times to ultimately form five nerves. So, the brachial plexus is responsible for upper extremity function, so control over the hand, wrist, forearm, and shoulder, all important functions of a conductor when operating a train. So this is an overview of the brachial plexus. As you can see, the origin is at the spinal cord in the neck region. So it begins at C5 to T1, and the plexus travels from its roots, C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1, to the trunks. Each trunk divides into an anterior and posterior subdivision, which then form the three cords. The cords go on to form the five peripheral nerves. I will now break down the brachial plexus in terms of train schedule information and maps. This is the conductor of the brachial plexus. His name is Robert Taylor because he starts at the roots and then travels to the trunks. The picture on the left demonstrates where the brachial plexus is located on him, and as you can see, it originates in the neck-shoulder region. The plexus crosses the clavicle and then ends around the head of the humerus. Here is the train map, or an overview of the brachial plexus network. To ride, one must first start at the roots, and a passenger can enter anywhere from C5 to T1, and then the first stop is at the trunks. So C5 and C6 merge into the upper trunk, and C7 becomes the middle trunk, and C8 and T1 merge into the lower trunk. Each trunk then divides into an anterior and posterior division, which results in one of three cords, either the lateral, posterior, or medial. Each cord goes on to become one of the five branches. The destination can be remembered as MARMU, and this stands for the musculocutaneous nerve, axillary nerve, radial nerve, median nerve, and ulnar nerve. Now I will break it down into each section to give a more clear picture of the pathway. Here we see the roots forming the trunks. Each trunk then splits into two pathways, one anterior and one posterior division. On the right, we see how different anterior and posterior divisions merge to form the cords. So the anterior division of the upper and middle trunk form the lateral cord. The posterior divisions of the upper, middle, and lower trunk form the posterior cord, and the anterior division of the lower trunk becomes the medial cord. Finally, the cords separate to form the five branches. A part of the lateral cord becomes the musculocutaneous nerve, another part of the lateral cord meets with a part of the medial cord to form the median nerve, one part of the posterior cord becomes the axillary nerve, while another part becomes the radial nerve. Finally, another part of the medial cord becomes the ulnar nerve. So now that we have broken down each part of the brachial plexus, here is another overview to see where we started and our final destination. So we have starting at the roots, which turn into the trunks, which become the divisions, which go on to the cords, and end with the branches. So you may have noticed it on the train map, but here is a mnemonic device to remember the order and sections of this complex system. So Robert Taylor drinks cold beer is another way to remember that it goes from the roots to the trunks to the divisions to the cords and ends with the branches. This is a visual to show you the nerves that haven't been discussed. So there are multiple nerves that form off of the brachial plexus. For example, we can see the thoracic nerve branching off C5, C6, C7, and C8 to form this nerve. The brachial plexus results in five main branches, and each one has a role in motor and sensory processing. This is a sensory cutaneous distribution of the nerves. So in the pictures on the right, you can see how the brachial plexus has sensory innervation of the upper extremities. Each nerve innervates specific muscles or muscle action groups. So the musculocutaneous nerve innervates the elbow flexors, specifically the coracobrachialis, biceps brachii, and the brachialis. The axillary nerve innervates the deltoids and the teres minor. And the radial nerve, which goes to the back of our arm, innervates roughly all of the extensors. The median nerve is responsible for muscles below the elbow and for intrinsic muscles of the hand. The ulnar nerve innervates the flexor muscles of the forearm and the remaining intrinsic muscles of the hand. Brachial plexus injuries or impairments can occur at any time in an individual's life. They are very complex and hard to diagnose. The symptoms associated with brachial plexus injury is pain, loss of sensation, or muscle weakness. In some cases, paralysis of muscles in the upper extremity can occur. The most common source of injury is high-speed car accidents, injuries resulting from blunt force trauma, stab or gunshot wounds, or any injuries caused by internal forces such as inflammation, compression, or neuropathy. In order to diagnose a brachial plexus injury, an individual must undergo multiple examinations to gather information on their history, motor functions, nerve connections, and sensory distribution, and this often takes a long time. So here are two common pathologies. So we have the thoracic outlet syndrome and the Parsonage-Turner syndrome. The thoracic outlet syndrome occurs from compression of the muscle, nerve, artery, and vein in the brachial plexus region, while the Parsonage-Turner syndrome results from a viral infection, which causes damage to the individual's long thoracic nerve. So as a potential occupational therapist, it's important for us to understand the brachial plexus and have a basic foundation of knowledge in order to recognize atypical functioning. Our role in a client's recovery is to help them maintain range of motion and length of muscle, promote proper positioning, and facilitate muscle recovery. And remember, the most important thing is to be patient and encourage our clients. So thank you for joining the brachial plexus, and remember, Robert Taylor drinks cold beer.